Hello. I want to say something. I uploaded another video about languages, and I don't want to get into the game again, but because I better fish to fry. But I want to say something. I see a lot of videos where the approach is cognitive. The cognitive approach is the knowing the language, not absorbing the language and internalizing the language. So actually you learn a foreign language like you would learn Old Greek or Latin in a very old-fashioned way. You just learn basically the morphology, which is the study of how words change. And some languages have next to nothing morphology, and or words do not change, just they are glued to each other. There's another approach, another way of structuring a language. So we actually learn the declinaisons, which is the way the ending of words end, the ending of the words, and according to their function, to me, for me, instead of using prepositions, you use these endings, that or ending of verbs, that some languages have no endings. I mean, they don't change the end of the word. For example, in English you barely have some examples. I speak, you speak, she speaks, but for the most part they don't change. These are languages where you always add a subject, while in spoken language sometimes you skip it when the context is very clear. Bad language, I say io parlo, tu parli, lui parla, noi parliamo, for example, in Italian. Well, there are two ways of using this. First of all, you learn other things. For example, English is very complicated concerning some subtle difference. We don't have an Italian usage of verbs. I have done, I did, I'm going to do, I will do, I'm doing. They don't have a real 100% future tense. You have different ways to express something in the future. Even the concept of future is different. For the Italian, they will say I go open the door, that's I'm going, or I get the door. We use the present. We have a wider scope when it comes to the tense, the present tense. I mean, we consider present usually not the past, but we don't have some differences like we have in English or you have in English. So the bottom line is many people they speak the first language, or even when it's not. For example, Greek people want to teach French, want to teach Greek to French people, and most of the time it's a Greek person, sorry if I say Greek, but now I'm dealing with Greek people, it's a Greek person who master quite well the French language, not 100%, you still hear the accent. People like the fact that the teacher has an accent, or otherwise they wouldn't trust him, because people do not believe there are people who have no accent in both languages, or really very next to minimum accent. Everybody has an accent. Even if you're perfectly bilingual, it's very difficult when you speak for a long time not to be influenced by the other language that you master. That's my experience, that's what I feel, that's what I think when I speak Italian and English, but I don't think there is perfection. There's an approximation to perfection. But the fact that you always use your first language or the language of the learner rather than the target language is not, one thing I'm sure, it's not a good approach. It's a cognitive approach. You're ending up knowing the language in a conscious way, which is not the same thing as speaking. When you play the guitar, I play the ukulele, I know that this is the chord, and there are, tablature and things. One thing is watching on paper, one thing is being able to move from one chord to the other without gaps. It's more or less is knowing words and being able to articulate words. The only difference is that when you learn a musical instrument, you start practicing in an active way from the beginning, while with languages they're more passive thing for a long time. So what I blame is a lot of people who in a way made it. They speak a second language, I don't know, and they think since they made it, and we don't know how effectively they are learning words. I mean, you may have master another language, but it took for you a long time. And they end up posing as experts. And I don't have. Okay, I took two linguistics examinations, exams at in the university, but it was a long time ago, and I got most of my information through reading books written by experts and watching videos by people who are academic studies and are actually university teachers. I'm not. So I always say, you watch my videos, I'm not the be-all, end-all of what language learning. It's just a bridge. Watch better people than me. Do not trust people who have their reality in their, we say, in their pockets. Nobody has it. Nobody has a foolproof way of teaching, of learning. One thing is sure. We approach language learning or language, yeah, you absorb language in a way, in better ways than in the past, and maybe in the future we have more scientific and psychological ways of learning. Most of people, and this is the videos are most watched, because people actually prefer to listen to a long blah 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 explanation. We are not speaking about mathematics or history. Speaking about the language, how it works. Even if you explain a rule, best way, I'm sure, is to make the person intuit the rule. Use our intuition that grows. That's my experience. I've been teaching for years, more than a decade, through guessing and making mistakes, guessing again and getting the right. Oh, that's more or less similar. Yes, like we learned our first language. So beware of language experts who are not experts. I am not an expert. I know one thing or two, and I always say watch videos that, if you want to use your language, get all the information, scientific and informative information, so to speak, about how to go about learning a foreign language. Then try to find a method, a way of learning that is starts from simple things and little by little according to a specific method. I mean, there are things that people learn first, and they studied that in children. So there are some structures that psychological come in the learning before other structure, and people who know what's what in learning, in teaching a foreign language, know the order of importance of things that the learners should learn. Okay, do not watch overachievers. All these people who speak 20 languages. You're not here or there to become a member of a circus. It's fun to watch one time, then say, I'm not out to learn even 2 or 3 languages. Most likely. Most of the people are not language buffs. They are perfectly satisfied with mastering a second language. Let's say a third, because in this society I don't agree with this, in spite of the fact I'm speaking in English. I'm more for Esperanto, but I say many people are forced by the way things go in on this word to learn English. But if you are ready to learn a second, let's say a third language for you, you have a native language, you have English in a third language, try to find people who as soon as possible use more and more the target language, and try to find people who capitulate on the first capitalize capitulate is when you lose, capitalize on their previous lessons. I mean, there must be an order. That's called method. Other things to say, yes, beware of an amount of clicks. There are very interesting videos. They are don't have a lot of hits. Clicks is Italian, hits. Sorry. A lot of hits, and also likes and dislikes. I sound a little bit snobbish, but I tell you, that's what I think. I think that it's not people who get more hits that are the best. So try to watch videos that make sense. Try to avoid hams, people who try to keep the attention high, but the attention really is not on the language, is on their antics. There is one from Italy who wants to teach English, doesn't know English. Well, let's say he mispronounces a lot, but he gets a lot of hits because he's funny. Well, try you something, or you needn't be boring, but sometimes the subject itself, it's interesting. Sometimes people get bored because they're not really interested. They have an attention disorder, maybe sometimes, and they're not used to studying. Once you get used to serious things, you don't get bored. Actually, the more the thing gets technical, the more you are interested. Sometimes I watch some things about guitars that I was not interested before, and now I watch them, I'm very, very interested. But I understand that if you're not interested in guitars, some subjects so specific that are boring, other videos are so general, they can appeal to every kind of person. So what's rubbish for somebody can be a treasure for somebody else. Try to assess your level. Don't overdo it. Try to find something that is challenging, but not too much. Otherwise, it goes over your head, you don't understand anything, you're not learning anything. Try to be logical. Try to be a down-to-earth person. Don't just watch videos. I know it's important to have the video part, the audio part, and I said language is an activity, but having textbooks with an audio part and a video part can give you what I said before, a method. I think that the priority is in listening and then speaking and interacting, preferably with real people. But there is a point, there's sometimes I'm against, well, I'm saying something that goes against the grain of what I said before, but sometimes some drills can be interesting if you see them in an interesting way. If you like them, you review them, you check what you've been doing, you try to do it again as if you make the same mistakes. Well, you can do it. It would be better if you have this drill with an audio part, not just written. Try to avoid just an approach that's for the most part written. So if you have drills that you can check and you have a CD-ROM or whatever, and you can listen also to the audio part, is very important. It's also important that you see as boring. The moment you're bored, you're not learning. Try to not be bored. Try to, if you are bored every time, and to give you a piece of advice, stop learning. Why should you do something that doesn't give you satisfaction? Unless you're forced by some reason, try to have a hobby that pleases you. When you want to show off, well, at least show off something that you like. You get two birds with a stone. Having said that,